Bang ding ding, trademark. He come out 6'7" tall. Bang ding ding, one is star. Bang dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding. This is a perfect day.
Woke up to the sound of the garbage truck again. Upstairs neighbor's toilet's leaking on my head. Cars broke down, I missed the bus, there runs a 10. I had a feeling this was a day to stay in bed. I finally left my pad right under Jumbo's cloud roof. A police officer pulled out his gun and said, I said, sir, you got the wrong guy. I guess it's just a perfect day. It's just a perfect day. Na, 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 na,
Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of Eggs. This week's special guest is Carl Gould. Carl is a business growth expert, mentor, and entrepreneur. He's built 3 multi-million-dollar businesses by the age of 40, has mentored and launched more than 5,000 businesses, and has trained and certified over 7,000 business coaches in 35 countries. Carl has written 3 best-selling books on business strategy and growth, and he has appeared regularly on the home improvement reality show This House Too. And each week he co-hosts Quit and Get Rich on iHeartRadio. He is the MC for EO Nerve and the facilitator of Breakthrough the Barriers and the Firewalk Experience. Carl is married with 3 children and is a member of EO New Jersey. And here to tell us about all that and more is our guest, Carl Gould. Welcome to the show, Carl. How are you?
All right, I'm great. How you guys doing?
So good. Thank you for making the time to be here. We're glad to have you.
Thanks for having me. Psyched about talking about my eggs.
Yep. Well, let's get into it. Let's start off. What was your first egg? What did you do for coming out of college?
My first egg. So this is my entrance into entrepreneurship. I broke my leg pretty badly in school, and I had to leave, and I was paying my own way, and so going back to school just wasn't a possibility for me. So I had to make money. I had to. I spent 6 months between with my leg in a cast and in physical therapy and bending my leg again. And so I started a landscaping company, and so my first egg was launching.
Wait! You could barely walk, and you start a landscaping company.
Well, I could barely walk. Then I started a So yeah, I was in a full leg, guys. I was in a cast from my hip to my ankle. For 3 months, my leg was straight as a board. Then I get the thing cut off, and I go to physical therapy. Excuse me. And they have to start bending my leg. Oh my God. It was like,
that
over
sounds
time,
horrible.
it was crazy. It was horrible. I went through that for 3 months. So
that's horrible. Horrible.
that was June. And I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? I'm not going back in the fall semester. Not going to happen for me. And so I spent some time. I looked at what I knew how to do. And according to my older brothers, I knew how to do 2 things. Not even that well. But one was landscaping. One was construction because I grew up in it. So, but I wanted to be outside. I enjoyed that. I did landscaping in high school. So, I wanted to start a landscaping company. So I did. And it worked out really well. I grew that business. And over the next 7 years, I sold it. And then I started a construction company. That was my next egg. You want to keep going?
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So started that business in 1992, grew it till 2004 and sold that business. But I started my coaching career in 1991. I went to a Tony Robbins seminar, really enjoyed it. I liked working with people, helping them set goals and pursue their dreams. And then I got involved in neuro-linguistics programming and disc behavioral science and axiology and coaching methodologies. And I really loved it. And I knew someday I was going to do something in it. But it wasn't until I hired a coach for my business in 1996 that I really got a taste for it and said, you know what, I want to do this as a career. And so I started that business in 2002, and that's the business that I have till today.
Yeah, that's amazing. No, I think it's really great. We've had a number of people on here who are sort of Tony Robbins disciples, and it's amazing the impact he's had on so many people's lives. It's really cool that it sort of inspired you to go this route. It seems like, if you're sort of, and maybe this is a negative connotation, but sort of, a lot of times if people are really entrepreneurial, it seems like they might be chasing the money a little bit. And so the idea of this philanthropic bit and finding real impact in your life in that work, what was that like? Were you always sort of, empathetic towards others, or was it just after seeing Mr. Robbins' presentation that you're like, you know what, I could see a life doing this?
Well, it was mostly the content and the exercises he had us go through, but I just started thinking about, I actually walked out of there feeling more energized about my core business. I'm excited to get out here and do more landscaping, right? But then I started to volunteer more, and I've always done more volunteering, but I started to volunteer from a coaching standpoint more than just being present and helping and, hey, I'm an extra set of hands and I got all day. What do you want me to do? And I started volunteering in a coaching context. And I was like, wow, this is powerful. Coaching is powerful. It's making a huge difference in the people's lives that I'm working with. And I never thought it would be, that something could fill that role so well, And prior to that, I had spent time volunteering at assisted living facilities, hospitals, nursing homes, and just being there and being present and talking to people and visiting with them and just spending some time with them was enough for them. They were just so happy that someone paid attention to them and gave them their time and and genuine interest in what they were doing. But then you add on the coaching techniques, and I was making measurable differences in people's lives. And what I realized was I can make more impact overall if I coach one business leader who then goes out and impacts his employees, who then go out and impact thousands of clients every single year. I realized the ripple effect of my work was exponential through coaching. Whereas when I was landscaping, I was helping one property at a time, home building, one home at a time. And I enjoyed it, but it wasn't something different.
Yeah, that's incredible. How was the transition though from sort of business guy? I mean, it sounds like you've got sort of a philanthropic vein running through you, but what was that transition like from, full-time business guy to deciding that you had whatever it took to become a coach? I know for a lot of people, and especially, maybe younger in their career, maybe people not quite as far along as you were, but for a lot of people, they would have a hard time saying, you know what, I am now qualified to coach. I've achieved enough of whatever. And I wonder if you had any sort of mixed feelings about getting into coaching, or if it took you maybe longer than anticipated to get into it for some reason like that.
Well, so many people have asked me the question, what does construction and landscaping have to do with coaching? And I said, absolutely nothing. There's no relation, no correlation, nothing. But I can tell you, having run a construction company and then advised them, it is by far and away, with no close second, the hardest industry to be successful in, period. Bar none. Not even close. Every decision you make has so many complex impacts on other areas. It's been my observation that construction's easy to get into. Anyone can get into it, but to be truly successful and make it a successful business, one of the hardest things that I've seen. So what it prepared me for coaching was everything by comparison seemed easy. Coaching seems easy. Working with another kind of client in their company seems easy. I'm like, oh my God, if this was a construction company, you have any idea how big that mistake would have ballooned? In construction, the expression, if you're building a house, if you make an 1/8 of an inch mistake in the foundation, it's a 2-inch mistake on the roof. In construction, mistakes grow over time. They don't, if left unchecked, they continue to grow. And it has an impact all over the place. So it was a great reference point for me, but it really, I can't say it prepared me for the science of coaching. Becoming a qualified coach was a really hard road. I mean, that was of the 4 major disciplines you can be involved in: coaching, mentoring, advisory, consulting. Becoming a professional coach to me was the hardest, because it not only takes the most time, it also takes the most experience. Because coaching fundamentals are pretty straightforward, but you can go in so many directions with a client that it's hard to. But I found that I enjoyed that ride. I enjoyed that journey with the clients, and I just realized I had a bit of an aptitude for it. So from 1991 to 1996 or so, I was doing some part-time coaching. It was my side hustle. It was, if there was a gig economy back then, I would have been an Uber driver, but just doing coaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was doing it. I was doing coaching for situational leadership by Ken Blanchard, and leadership for Dale Carnegie, and the Franklin Covey systems, Tony Robbins. I said to them, I want to get good at this. How do I do it? And they gave me a few suggestions, but I basically immersed myself in coaching and donated the first 1,000 sessions that I ended up doing in my career. I just said, I will coach anybody on anything, anywhere, male, woman, male, female, young, old, personal, professional, life coaching, business coaching, couples, you name it, financial, wealth, whatever the topic was, I'm in, and I wanted to get really good at this. And then I sought out every certification that I could possibly find in the area of coaching. One of my colleagues joked with me, and they said, "Is there a certification you don't have?" At this point, because I just said I want to immerse myself in it, and there was no like college. There are colleges universities that offer coaching as a major, and you can get your PhD now in coaching. But back then, it was certification programs, adult education, and different, private institutions you can go to. But it wasn't structured.
Sure.
So, but I just dove into it, immersed into it, and just ran with it from there.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I think one thing that really stands out for me in this aspect of your life is the fact that you sort of did all this work for free. I think, there's a saying, and maybe it's less prevalent in current generations, but this idea that you should be paid for all your internships, and this idea that you need to be being paid in order to go do work for somebody. But people like, I guess my age, older, maybe, it seemed more common that, if you wanted to get into something, you kind of had to do it for free. When I was young, I wanted to be in the music business, and I gave up, 5 years working for free for different bands just so that I could hang out on the tour bus, but it was this whole concept, and even in my career in advertising and marketing, in those early days, we did a ton of work for free, just for the opportunity to get out in front of people and kind of to cut your teeth, you've got to figure out your business. And so I think It's really a great observation that you made, this idea that you sort of gave up those first 1,000 just as a way to become proficient, so that the next 100,000 or 10,000 or whatever can be, more impactful.
Well, my thinking was I had read a couple of books and that had contained the concept of tithing, saying that you should give away 10% of your time, treasure, and talent, and with no expectation of return. And that tithing has been the greatest marketing plan and approach of all time. And I was like, all right, well, I have nothing to compare it to. I have nothing to argue the point. So I'll try it. And by what I didn't realize, nor was I setting out to do it, was I was volunteering my time with other coaches, with other business people. Well, after a period of time, they would say, "Hey, I like your style. Hey, I like the way you did that. I have a company and I've got 10 leaders. Would you coach them? I've got this. I'm part of a coaching consortium. Can I use you as a referral? What's your specific area?" And then I became the go-to business guy. And that's how I got more into business coaching, because I was the entrepreneur at 18, and so even though I was a young guy coaching, I still had 8 to 10 years as an entrepreneur, plus 5 to 8 years as a coach, having done a couple of thousands of hours of coaching. So I started to get that. I've done something like 30,000 coaching sessions over the years. So, it's true that 1,000 turned into 10,000 plus. So for whatever that's worth,
Yeah. Well, and that's what they say, right? The 10,000 hours thing, so you got your 10,000 hours in, and at this point you're proficient. So that's amazing. I think that's a really cool story. And I love the the sort of step-by-step growth, to get to what you're doing today.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
let's kind of we've got your history now. Let's kind of move forward a little bit and talk about actual plans and running a business. What do you think like the most critical skill that a business owner should have in order to thrive today? What do you think is the most important thing that someone should be focusing on?
Yeah, I mean, you have to believe in what you do, because the amount of energy, so the top skills, hustle, energy, right? Commitment, persistence, and resiliency are the two attributes. But the skill of influence is the top skill I think you'll use in your work. Like if the three of us went outside and I said, listen, guys, we got to move that pile of wood from here to there. We can all grab it, walk it over, whatever, drop it, and keep going. But if I wanted to build, so that's a job. We all had a job, right? But if I wanted to build a business, I have to influence other people to want to be able to haul wood back and forth all day long and do it in such a way that they enjoy it enough that they're going to want to do it forever. So I don't think you, as a business owner, you ever stop influencing people. And the more successful that you're going to be, the more you're going to get done through others. And so your skills of influence, which then cascade down to coaching and mentoring and leadership and sales and negotiation and marketing, creating culture, building morale, those sorts of things. That skill of influence will serve you well all throughout your career. Because if you're a business owner and you can't convince others about your mission, vision, values, purpose, and to take action and do it do it on a consistent basis and create a great experience for the customer, you won't have a business. So you're going to have to be a person of influence throughout your entire entrepreneurial career.
Makes sense.
So to that end, can you talk a little bit about a couple of your sort of growth hacks? How do people become influential? I think, some people maybe come by it a little more naturally than others. It's sort of in the genes, so to speak. But then I think there are other people who might have to work a little harder to get there. I mean, are these skills that you see as trainable? Like, can you teach people to become more influential? Or does it, border on being kind of, tricky or dishonest if they start acting that way?
Right. Well, we are all people of influence naturally with the people who are wired like us. There's three basic wirings. You are when it comes to building rapport and influence, you're either a visionary, you're more balanced like an implementer type, or you're an analytical details, more committed, solid type, right? And birds of a feather flock together. So you put two visionaries together, they're going to get along, influence each other. They believe in it, a lot of rapport, and that's going to happen. The skill you develop is, how can I be influential in the two other rapport types that I'm not like? So if I'm a visual, high energy, big picture thinker, but I'm around a more balanced, modulated, I should say, person who doesn't go too high, doesn't go too low, more logical in their approach, how do I influence that person? Right? And then how do I influence that person who's more steadfast, committed, analytical, like a rock? Can't move them back, but it's hard to move them forward, right? And so we have to learn the skill of influencing others that are not our type. So yeah, we teach that. But one of the ways that you influence somebody is you have to be so bought into whatever it is you're doing. And there's a lot of discussion. Do you have to be passionate about your business? I don't think you have to be, but it does help, for sustainability and not getting burnt out.
For sure.
But you just have to be so bought in that there is no doubt in my mind that the best place in the world for our clients is with us. And you have to feel that with every cell in your body, so that when there's ever you get an objection, or you hit a slump, or somebody complains, rightfully or wrongfully so, you will have the energy to overcome and work through that complaint or work through that tough time. So we all have it within us. The question is, do we believe enough in what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing it, that we're going to push through the amount of rejection and the amount of warnings and resistance that you're going to get as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great observation, because it's just it's one of those things that I think people struggle with, where they try and find this, I don't know, way to be influential, but what they do is they go out and they learn a few things or whatever, and then they try and trick people into scenarios.
Yeah.
Versus the version that you've described, where people, have this sort of, energy about something. I mean, I can't think of, a specific example, but I know over the course of my life, I mean, the people I'm more likely to follow are the people who are all jacked up about what we're doing. They're having a great time, or they really love the company they work for or whatever. And, that energy is infectious. And so and I think that's sort of what prompted the question, is that trainable? Because I think for a lot of people, it's just, maybe it's the way they carry themselves. They just kind of are that way, versus having to learn that as a skill.
Yeah, well, your body language can prompt and move your verbal language and your emotional language as well. So one can stimulate the other. So there is some science that just shows if you assume certain body language positions, you'll start to feel the emotions that go with it. So, if I were to tell you what does a depressed person look like, you'd probably describe them as, mostly down. And if you put your physiology mostly down, you're going to start feeling down. Whereas if you put your physiology and your energy mostly up and you're smiling, it's hard to feel depressed with a big crap-eating grin on your face. It's just hard to do. Try it. It's like, nothing negative coming in. You know what I mean? So you can actually prompt your emotional states that way, for a short period of time. But again, if you don't believe in what you're doing and you got your butt dragged into this in the first place, that's going to show. You can't adapt your behavior for any significant period of time without burning out. So your job, your business, how you engineer your entrepreneurial life has to align with your natural style some way, right? You're leading this podcast based on your style. It's very natural for you, the way you come across, right? I do interviews where some people you have to peel them off the ceiling and some people I have to check a pulse for, and I'm like, come on, dude, it's your podcast. Let's go, pick it up a little,
Yeah. Well, I think to that point, there's, so much about it. And this is just one of the words that I spend a lot of time thinking about is intention, right? It's about sort of setting your intentions and making sure that you're doing the things that I understand sometimes we have jobs that don't bring us joy, but nonetheless, you still have to go do your work and you still have to do that thing. So your intention might be the why, so I can pay my way through college, or so I can, feed my family, or, whatever it is. But by setting a positive intention or an intention that you can sort of follow, it makes the rest a little easier for you. And I think the same can be, said for business leadership. If you're even, sales or whatever, back to the idea of influence, if your intent is to sort of swindle, if you're going the used car sales route, not to, beat up on too many used car salesmen out there.
Yeah,
sure. But if you are going that sort of stereotypical route and you're good with it, like that's the way you're going, I mean, you almost can't help but kind of smell like that to the people who are seeing you or interacting with you. Where if your intention is pure, and even if it's misguided, for example, you're selling something that maybe isn't as good as it says it is, but nonetheless you buy it, you could still sort of, be pushing something pretty hard and pretty well because your intention's in the right spot. Yeah. And so I think that that's kind of one of those things is, being able to sort of be intentional with the work we're doing.
Yeah. Look, over time, masking your behavior or trying to be somebody that you're not is kind of like holding your breath. You can only do it for so long. You have to exhale. And the more you fake it, at some point, the more it's obvious to the rest of the world. And we've all been around uninspired and very uncompelling people. And we've been around inspired and compelling people. When I started my landscaping company, I didn't start it because I had a passion for landscaping, but I had a strong why. I said, look, I've got to make something of myself. I had to grow up a little earlier than I thought. I thought I was going to have 2.5 more years of college. I thought I was going to live that life. I thought, but then it just didn't happen. The world's, reality stepped in and said, you're on the couch and you're not going back to school. So, you want to go back to school, get off your ass, start making money so you can go back to school. So I did. I went to school nights and took classes for 10 years at night at County College, while I was building my entrepreneurial career, but I had a strong why, a life why, even though I wasn't all that passionate about landscaping. I enjoyed being outside. It was a nice creative release. I was in my own business. I was, I had direction. It was good. But man, after 7 years, I was like, oh, I'm done with this. I am done with this, and so I positioned and sold the company and then started in construction, which really wasn't my passion either. But again, I only knew 2 things, right? And everyone told me, you're good at 2 things, Carl. Stick to what you're good at. And I'm like, all right. So I got rid of the one thing I was good at. Let me try the second thing you keep telling me I'm good at. But 10 years later, I was burnt on that too. But I've been in this business for 18 years, and I know I'm in the right business because it just doesn't feel. I mean, I go home tired, and I'll have a long day, but I'm as energized today about my work than I was when I started.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Like, it's funny because, hearing what you're talking about, like, that's sort of not too far removed from where I've been sort of recently in my career too. I've been doing the same thing for a long time, something that I was good at and was a natural fit for me to step into, which is this marketing advertising world. But more recently, I've started niching down into sort of consulting on remote work and helping people leverage remote work as a way to lift themselves out of, either third world or small town situations. And, and what I found is I've got like a new fire, right? Like I'm all fired up for this new thing that, now I can see. And that's why I was kind of picking at you about the coaching thing, is because I've had the opportunity now to coach a few different guys from, different parts of the world who are having different struggles and trying to find work or build businesses and things like that. And I'm basically coaching them how they can leverage remote work, working from Africa for a company here in the States or in Europe or wherever. And, seeing the meaningful and impactful change that can be brought to these people's lives by way of remote work and via the coaching work that I'm able to do for them because of my background. It's, for me, it's hugely, wildly rewarding. And so, it's cool to see. I mean, you're further along in this path than I am. Like, this is kind of a new thing, but I think it's refreshing to hear somebody talk about it's okay to pivot. It's all right to jump out of a career where you're used to, because I think so many of us get caught up, doing whatever it is we've always done. And it's really difficult to make that change. And then also the fact that your change came largely, I guess, the good that you were doing for people is fueling the change. And I think that's both, really cool points.
It was not a happy day when I announced to the world that I'm going to be a coach in 1996. They were like, what? What sport? What team are you going to coach? I'm like, no. I'm going to be a professional life and business coach. And they're like, what? You're going to what? You're going to walk away from this very successful business and you're going to do a job that nobody in this planet has heard of?
So
that
cool,
was not a happy day.
And that's the thing is, I think, chasing a passion, being all right and brave enough, I guess, to make that pivot. Those things I think are such admirable characteristics that it's very cool.
Yeah. So, with Ryan kind of going into this coaching route and trying to follow that road, can you actually kind of break down what you did when you initially started and how you scaled your coaching business to something that's sustaining your family?
Yeah. So, so that was all through the 90s when I was coaching. There weren't a tremendous amount of systems and processes that you could follow. It was early stages of the industry, and so I started documenting what I was doing to set up an engagement, to set up a client session. What was I doing? What was working? What was not? And so what I didn't realize I was doing was I was building a coaching methodology. And in the 90s, when I was starting to research coaching, I found that the average full-time coach was making $23,000 a year.
Woo-hoo!
23. Yeah. All right. Count them all, baby. Don't let any pennies roll off the table when you're making that. I live in New Jersey, had a growing family, had a house. I'm like, I can't do this. I gotta earn a living. So I had to figure out a way to make this. I said, well, if this is going to work, it's got to be a 6-figure business of billing. Like I don't have to make $100,000, but I've got to be billing 6 figures minus costs, then I can afford to live, and have a family. So I built a system, a coaching system, where you could charge every bit as much as a financial advisor would, insurance, accountant, attorney, any other honorable professional service. And I said, I want to be one of those. And so my system allowed me to bill my clients $350 an hour. That was my start. And based on that, if I had enough, did enough client work, then I can have a 6-figure business. Well, word about that got out. They're like, well, how are you making this your full-time gig? And I said, well, I created an entire system. You want to hear more about it? And so I was writing a process, but I also became certified in every other process I could find out there. Tony Robbins, Dale Carnegie, Ken Blanchard, Stephen Covey, you name it. I got certified in all of it, right? DISC, NLP, NAC, human need psychology. I was coaching on all of those platforms. And so I was getting leads from those places because I was a certified coach guy. But I built a system which, showed you how to have a 6-figure practice in the early days when average coach was making $23,000. As a matter of fact, the expression back then was you had to take a full-time job to feed your coaching addiction because you couldn't live on just coaching, right? That's what it was. Yeah. So I said, no, I'm not going down that road. I'm not going to be a coach, 8 hours a day, but then have to take an 8-hour job because I can't make any money coaching. I'm not going to do that. All right. Because I have the responsibilities and I wanted to make sure I met my responsibilities. And so word got out that you can fresh out of the box, start out in coaching, charging $350 an hour, get your client list. You're doing $100,000 a year. So I started training other people who wanted to be coaches. And that led me to be the private label coaching arm of other organizations. So I trained certified, accredited, franchise licensed in one way, shape, or form about 7,000 coaches from 2002 through today. And so my business went on 2 parallel tracks. I was coaching coaches to be coaches. And I was also coaching companies and coaching my clients. And so that allowed me the stability, the certification programs I was running allowed me the stability to, build, go on the roller coaster ride of coaching of any business. A lot of clients, not a lot of clients, not a lot of clients, and so I was able to, the two together leveled me out. And that's what helped me get to the point where it was legit sustainable. And now the majority of what we do is coaching and consulting. We don't do a lot of training and certification these days. But in the early days, that really laid a platform for me to become a sustainable business. And bear in mind, I coach 7,000 coaches. So who do you think they turn to if they need coaching or another coach? They became a huge referral source as well.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
It was like my own ecosystem.
Interesting. So from start to finish, you took all the different training programs, the Carnegie's, the different programs out there. You went and learned them, and then you got referrals from them to start your practice for the most part.
Well, and I learned situational leadership as an example, and then if I, and as a certified situational leadership, going through that certification, people who are interested in that, then it became either they would approach me directly, or I would get a referral because I knew that process. So, I leverage the brands of established people in the beginning or established technologies or methodologies as a way to acquire clients in the beginning.
So, for example, Ryan's trying to work with these remote workers and focus on that niche. I don't know that there's a certification program for remote work. Can he create his own certification program? And then,
bingo.
Like, how do you go about legitimizing a certification program?
Well, you can take lengths to get your program accredited through different organizations. So, for example, the International Coach Federation recognizes my training programs as coach-specific hours if you're pursuing their accreditation. Okay, so you can get other organizations to recognize it. You can now, and there could be other organizations that endorse it maybe not accredit it, but endorse it. Now, remote working, virtual assistants, outsourcing, it's not a regulated, mature industry yet. It's still the gig economy out there. But if you think about programs like when you buy a car from BMW, they recommend that you have your car worked on by a certified BMW mechanic, right? Who do you think created that certification?
BMW.
BMW,
Yeah.
right? Who administers it? BMW. We don't question it because it's BMW, but I don't know. It might be recognized or acknowledged, or it might not be. But we trust the brand of BMW. We say they're a quality company and they make quality cars. So if they're going to certify this army of mechanics out there, it's probably going to be good. Like, their brand equity is what launched it. So if Ryan starts, sorry, did I say if? I meant when Ryan lays his certification egg and creates certification programs, make sure it's just top quality first. Get the people who go through it to see that it's top quality, or help you refine it to become top quality. And once you've done that, it'll start getting the recognition it deserves. As far as street credibility, right? Now, if you want to pursue additional certifications or accreditation for your training company, then by all means do that. But in today's day and age, at least in the beginning, a certification program gets its value or perceived value by what you have done, Ryan, in order to stand in front of them and be their certifier, their facilitator and trainer, what successes you have had, what's your resume, and by what you make them go through in order to be a certified remote worker. Okay, so again, you can pursue the credentials or get others to recognize it, but in the beginning, because it's an unregulated and it's the wild, wild west right now, just make sure it's a kick-ass program that leads to the benefits that your clients want. So in coaching, my big passion is, my operating principle is, I wanted the ability to do something I love as a full-time passion and get to just choose my destiny. Work with the people I want, don't work with people I don't want, earn enough money so I can have my life, whatever that means, right? Now, I want the same for my clients. I want them to have the business to run in such a way that they can have the life of their design, whatever that means for them. If they want to work more, great. They want to put the toes in the beach, great. I'm not here to tell you what the right goal is, right? And it's monetary, it's financial, it's spiritual, it's relationships, it's health and fitness. But as long as I accomplish that, then my programs are going to be highly thought of. If sure. Ryan, if the motivation for your programs follows through and your students achieve the ability to be successful remote workers, then that's going to begin the process of validating your programs and awesome. Legitimizing them.
Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for that. So I think that you said something in there, though, that I think leads to this, it's a great segue to this next question. So, as in your coaching business, you spend a lot of time working on your clients and you really want them to achieve these high marks like you were talking about. So what's one strategy or recipe that the business owners and their teams could apply every day that would start compounding and start manifesting itself as big wins?
Yeah, we have something we call the obnoxious offer. And the obnoxious offer was based on an experience I had very early in my career where a prospect lectured me, told me my pricing was obnoxious. That's how high it was. Your pricing, Carl, is obnoxious. And I'm like, ooh, this isn't going well. It's been, you don't normally get yelled at in a sales presentation. Like, here's what I want to do. And then they, but after that lecture, I got hired. And I'm like, what just happened here? Right? I got yelled because I'm in my 19-year-old head. I'm like, you don't get yelled at and then get hired. Something's wrong. But it was legit. I got hired. And it stuck with me the whole weekend. And I'm like, why would this person hire me if they complained about my pricing? And then I realized, you know what? It was because what I offered is what he really needed. And he wasn't really mad at me. He was more upset with himself and the situation he found himself in, and that he had to kind of buy his way out. He had to pay a premium to help before I would adjust my schedule to accelerate this project. At the end of the day, that's what he wanted. He was upset with himself for putting himself in that situation. And we got him out. We got him out of it. Right? But what I did was I went back and I fell in love with my customer base. And I said, I remember the very first year, guys, here I am. I'm starting my consulting business and my landscaping business. I go out my first few proposals and I won them. I got them. I couldn't believe it. But everyone was telling me every time I got a project, well, you're the only one who's showing up. We call all these people. They say they're coming back. They don't come back. They say they're going to bring a proposal. And then they started complaining to me over and over again. You people don't call back. You don't show up. I don't get a proposal. You don't start on time. You don't finish on time. So just go down the list of all the things I was hearing. The next year I created what was called the obnoxious offer. And so I took all the complaints that I heard and I said, which ones can I fix? And which ones can I promise to my customers that they will never have to deal with? And so I leveraged the complaints I was hearing. You don't start on time. I guarantee you'll start on time. You don't finish. I guarantee the finish date. You're going to tell me one price and it's going to end up being another. There will be no contractor-driven change orders as long as you don't change the scope of work. You people don't guarantee anything. You're fly by night. We pay you. You're gone. I'll guarantee craftsmanship, hardscape, landscape for a period of time. And there's no senior people here. I've got a manager people, and there's a bunch of kids running around my property. We'll have a senior manager on every site. And so I created a guarantee option with every one of my projects that said, you gave me a scope of work. Here is the standard response. And here's the guarantee based on every complaint I heard over the last year. And I put a 35% premium on it. And wouldn't you know, that guarantee option outsold the standard option 2-1.
Interesting.
Yeah. So what I learned was, I said, wait a minute. This, because I would go in and I would say, I'm a great designer. Because remember I said I went to night school? First thing I enrolled in was horticulture, landscape design. I took all landscaping classes. I didn't go back for business and accounting and finance. I went back for landscaping. So I was a trained designer. I was a trained surveyor. I got my building inspector's license. So I was trained in what I needed to do these jobs. But at the end of the day, so rather than me saying, here's how great it's going to be, and here's how nice your place is going to be, I went right after what they were complaining about. I said, I bet you called a lot of people, huh? Oh my God. Yeah. A lot of people in the directory. I'm like, are you getting responses? Knowing they're not. Well, we got 3. I'm like, oh, that's good. So you want to compare. I said, anyway, here's my proposal. And then I would say to them, here's my production schedule. If you want to get started, I can start now. Just so you know, I'm going on 10 more proposals this week. I'm likely to fill up the next 30 days this week. So if you're interested, please let me know before Monday. And at first they would say, oh, well, that just sounds like a sales tactic. And I would say, and by the way, that's not a sales tactic. I'm giving 10 proposals. I've got verbals on half of them. 2 or 3 at least are going to come in, and they're 2 to 3 week jobs easily. So seriously, let me know by Monday. That's not a sales tactic. If you don't want to do it, totally cool. I understand. And I had a full pipeline. So even though I was young in business, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, this is great. Shoot fish in a barrel. So I didn't worry about the job I didn't get, but I leveraged those complaints and I went right after them. We're going to start on time. We're going to finish on time. And I just listed every single complaint that I was hearing and saying, that doesn't happen here. Because if it does, you get your money back. And they were like, really? I'm like, yeah, that's the way we operate. You got 2 options. You could pick. So really, guys, it was more about falling in love with the client and what was top of mind for them. I'm always trying to find out, what's worrying you? What do you get yelled at for when you head home at the end of the business day? What's going on in your life and business right now that made calling me a must? What's going on? Oh my God, my daughter just got, our son or daughter just got engaged and we want to have the wedding in the backyard. Congratulations. What's the date? it's June, blah, blah, blah. We'll guarantee it'll be done by that day. Really? Serious? No, guaranteed. It will be done. All right. Well, that's the most important thing to you. And I just handled it. So that's what, if team, and this doesn't have to be just in sales. If you're in customer service and someone wants to return something, what's the most important thing to you right now? Well, I just need store credit because this just doesn't fit. And I just want to get the right fit. Tell you what, I'm going to get a sales associate right now up here. Here's your store credit. I'm going to hand it to them. They're going to make sure you get fitted in the right outfit. You are a rock star, right? I don't want my money back. I want the outfit, or I want the laptop, or I want whatever. So this is anybody who's customer facing, right? If you're in the office collecting money, you're the credit collector. Yeah. Accounts payable calls, they're fun, right? So you call somebody up and say, listen, I understand what's going on. Tell me what's going on. Listen, I feel so bad. I'm not trying to avoid you, but I just can't make a payment this month. Fine. How about, what date the following month can you make a payment? Really? You'll let me go a month? Absolutely. Send me a post-dated check. Let me get a credit card authorization, or give me an authorization for an ACH, and I won't do anything until the date you tell me. Oh my God, you're a sweetheart. Let me know what's going on.
I think that you're making really great points. I mean, in our advertising marketing company, we try and price by value. We gave up hourly pricing a few years ago, and so we sort of base everything on value. But a big part of that value discussion is a lot of what you just described. It's what they call in that space, they call it the why discussion, or the why conversation. And the idea is that basically you're trying to establish what is it that they really want. In the design marketing world, they come to you and they say, hey man, I need a brochure. But the why behind that is I have to make more sales. Sales are down, and we need some tactic to try and drive sales. And so they come to you with a tactic, even though what they really need is maybe not that tactic; it's something else. And so by having this why conversation and actually being empathetic and drilling into what it is they actually need, asking a lot of questions and making sure you have a clear understanding of what it is they're actually looking for, you're much better equipped to do the work. And then the price is almost secondary. A lot of times they'll even name their own. And it's almost always more than you would have asked. But, in the situation like you mentioned with the guarantees, which is a big part of this as well, a lot of people are afraid to run out and give that guarantee up because, it feels like risky.
We actually had this conversation earlier today.
Had this conversation.
Yeah.
And so, so the thing with guarantees is that it builds that confidence, right? It builds that trust. And that's such a huge aspect of a sales call or a sales, conversation, is this idea of moving from you've got to get to a place of trust. And a guarantee is one way to do that. And so I think that that's a really, astute observation, this idea of using a guarantee. And, all the why conversation components are these things that you found out about your client, right? You found out the things they hate, what's going wrong in their life. And, and then worked to overcome those. I think that's all really smart approach, but it's very in line with what we're trying to do these days.
Right on. Sell the value, not the price. We have a very educated consumer these days. They do a lot of research. They know what's going on. And my study of behaviors and personalities and values, in the 90s, showed that people will make 70% of their decision based on their top two priorities. Whatever the top two problems they're trying to solve will drive 70% of their decisions anyway. If you look at problem number 3 or priority 3 and 4, those are the tiebreakers. They come in 30% of the time. So if you can just find out what are the top 2 things you're dealing with right now, let me fix them. 7 out of 10 times, they're going to decide on that. And if you have to keep going. But what's number 3 and number 4? And if I can solve those, then great. You've even got the tiebreakers as well.
Yeah. No, that's so true. So as we're starting to get towards the end of this thing, let's talk a little bit about the 7-Stage Growth Academy, what it is, how people can get involved, and what they could expect in terms of growth and relationship and all the rest that they ought to know.
Yeah, business owners rejoice. Your academy has come to you. So we have spent in our work with our clients, we not only work with the leaders, we also work with their teams. And so, we would coach the CEO, they'd all fired up, and they would try to translate that to their teams, and it wasn't working. So we said, enough. So we created the 7-Stage Growth Academy, which is twice a year. You come to our offices for a full-on training experience, but you come with your owners and partners, plus your key staff. And so we break everybody into 4 tracks. strategy track, business development track, operational track, finance track. And you immerse yourself with our advisors for 2 full days on all the things that you're working on right now. You learn from each other. It's really high level, advanced problem solving and consulting and growth consulting. And then you leave with your 90-day plan for the next quarter. We follow up in between, and then twice a year we do it. We just did one last week in February. We have another one coming up in October. But anyone who wants to learn more about it, we'd like to give a gift to your listeners. We do something called the business analysis, which is a growth analysis of your business. It's up to 2 hours. It's 4 pages, it's a 4-page workbook we're going to take you through, and we will recommend 5 distinct ways for you to grow your business. Out in the real world, we typically charge $1,500 for it, but for your listeners, we will offer it to them complimentary if they want to take us up on it. Just go to carlgould.com or 7stageadvisors.com and just contact us, put business analysis in the subject line, and we'll hook you up.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thanks so much for doing that.
Yeah.
And I was just going to ask where people should find you, but I think you just said it. So we'll make sure to include all those links in the show notes. We'll let people know where they can track you down. Any parting shots, any last little bits of advice that you'd like to share to people? Just, whether as it pertains to business or given your life coaching background, as it pertains to life and trying to find satisfaction. I think so many of us in this generation are busy chasing Instagram dreams and, 26-year-olds on yachts and all these things that don't exist.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you just had any kind of advice, for young entrepreneurs trying to get into it and, how to proceed or how to navigate these seas.
Sure. Well, look, 1 out of 15 people is a business owner. 14 out of 15 work for a company. Entrepreneurship is the biggest energy drain you'll ever do, but it's also the most invigorating thing you may ever do too. Everyone can be an entrepreneur, but you really have to believe in what you're doing, and you have to be committed to what you're doing, and you have to hustle. There is no replacement for work. So yeah, I get it, on whether it be on TikTok or Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, and you're saying, I work 4 hours a week and I'm a social media influencer. That person's not working 4 hours a week. They're working 4 hours in the morning before breakfast. They're working their tail off. But as long as you believe in what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work, and you're willing to work hard. So you got to pick something that you're willing to be committed to, and understand that you are in the marketing business. The day that you get into business, no matter what product or service that you push, you are always that person of influence, and you have to hustle. You can hustle your way to 5 million. Okay? Just pure hustle to 5 million. Once you get to 5 million, regardless of the type of business you are, you have to start having systems and processes to that, once you get to that point. Otherwise, you will never go over the 5 million mark, and only 4% of businesses will ever make it to 1 million or more. 96% never hit 1 million. So put that as a little threshold for yourself, something to shoot for, and get in that 4% club.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, thanks so much. Once again, that's carlgould.com, also 7stageadvisors.com. And thanks so much, Carl. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, guys. This was a blast. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Great having you.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks to everybody who tuned in, and we'll see you guys next week.